Welcome back to the Boyz and Ball Podcast. If you like the pod, hit the like button, subscribe. Let's go. All right. I want to get off right into some hot picks here, in the sense of what happened on Saturday. All right. I mean, college basketball was wild on Saturday. I mean, just the first team off the top of my head, Purdue. Purdue goes down to Indiana. Not a team you'd expect for Purdue to fall to.
It kind of shocked me, but Indiana had, I don't know if you saw the crowd and everything. I mean, they were amped for that game.
Oh yeah. And I think it was something crazy. Like that was like Indiana's first win against Purdue in like 4 years or something. Like it was something crazy.
Yeah, I don't think they've beaten them. Yeah, I think it was about 4 years. And none of I don't think any of the players on that team have ever beaten Purdue either. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And they, like you said, they were definitely amped up for that game. Like the crowd was crazy.
Yeah.
So that definitely gives your team life. But I mean, they dropped 50 in the first half.
Yeah, it kind of. What was the final score to that? I thought it kind of stalled out.
79-74.
Yeah, but I mean, Indiana's a good team. Mike Woodson's there. It's his first year there. He's really ramping it up, and then they Tracy Jackson Davis. I mean, I think he's going to be a first round pick, late first round. That dude can ball, and he did a really good job on Zach Edey, even though I think Edey had like 33 and 20.
Yeah, 33.
But he did a really good job offensively against him, and just against Purdue's defense.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about, for this year for college basketball, it doesn't really feel like. It's not that it doesn't feel like there is no predominant number one.
No. Look at Kansas, man. Look at Kansas struggling.
Yeah, well, that's the team we're going to talk about next. You normally have these teams, the blue bloods of college basketball, a Duke, UNC, Kansas, that they're okay. That's the team to watch out for this year. That's the number one.
Mm-hmm.
They just happen to get upset in the tournament, but there's not that team this year. Everyone's losing, everyone's falling. Like you never really know who's going to win each week with how these games are going.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising just because of in recent years, sometimes we do have that one team that's always good, especially like a team like Kansas who has like one of the best home records in college basketball history. I mean, they've been losing at home recently.
Yeah, or even like Gonzaga as of late has been that team where it's like, okay, if none of the teams from those big conferences are going to be that team, Gonzaga is going to be that team this year, and Gonzaga's dropping games.
St. Mary's played a really good game last night.
Yeah, and that's another game I want to talk about. Like St. Mary's played out of their mind. Like Mahaney, their guard,
Aiden Mahaney.
That kid throws dimes.
Yeah,
he's a problem, and I think he's a guy I think you could watch out for to be a late second undrafted player that can come in and play some really good minutes in the league.
True, yeah, or he could stay. I think he's a true freshman, so he could stay and become like a really good player just in that, for St. Mary's.
I don't mean if he's a true freshman, I don't think he leaves this year. He doesn't have a high enough draft stock to jump out and do all that. But he's a true freshman. Give him a year or two, and he's going to be one of the better guards in college basketball.
For sure, I like his game. For sure.
Yeah, when I was watching that Gonzaga game, St. Mary's really controlled that game. It was, they were playing very solid defense. Drew Timme had a pretty good second half, but Drew Timme's been around for a long time. You expect him to dominate in these matchups, and it just didn't happen.
I loved Drew Timme in high school, and I thought that he was going to be what he was when he got to college. But I've really fallen off on his hype train because he was supposed to be this crafty 6'10", 6'11" guy that was really almost like a one-and-done potential. And then maybe it was like after his sophomore year he'd leave. But when they played in the tournament last year against Memphis, I mean, Jalen Duren was bullying him around. Just the athleticism of Memphis really, it seemed to shake him up. And then even this year in certain situations, he doesn't show up in the big moments. And, he could have a big game against, San Diego or something. But when it comes to St. Mary's or these other matchups, San Francisco, Santa Clara, I've seen him struggle And I don't know. I think he's really fallen off on his draft stock.
I think he's just a little too slow,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see it on the defensive side. He gets hurt by that, but I feel like he's also really streaky too,
Yep.
because you look at this St. Mary's game. They played it was a close game for the most part throughout, but he only had like 4 points at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're the best player on your team, like you have to have more than four. In a ranked matchup, when you're playing for this, like I think this is the first year in 10 years that Gonzaga's probably not going to win their conference.
Yeah, I mean, I can see St. Mary's winning the conference.
I think St. Mary's is the leader for the conference right now. They're
It's the WAC. It's the WCC?
Yeah, WCC. Yeah. St. Mary's is undefeated.
That's a good conference this year, man.
Yeah. They're undefeated in play, and Gonzaga's 8-2 now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, St. Mary's is dominantly in control of that conference. They're gonna need to drop a couple games because, I mean, they still have. Do they have Gonzaga again? Yeah, they finished with Gonzaga at the end of the year, but I don't see a lot of teams that are going to be able to upset them. I mean, their next couple of games are uh, Loyola Marymount, Portland, San Diego, BYU. Maybe BYU can give them some trouble and sneak one. Maybe Loyola Marymount, but they definitely don't drop both those games.
No, they don't. Loyola Marymount, I would say even more than BYU. I mean, BYU is a decent squad. I like some of the guys from Marymount, and if they don't have to play San Francisco or Santa Clara, because really the top teams in that conference to me are St. Mary's, Gonzaga, San Fran, and Santa Clara. Other than that, I just really like those teams out of that. I don't see them struggling with anybody else.
Yeah, they just played
especially
San
if they're
Fran.
playing at home.
They just played San Fran and Santa Clara in their past 4 games, so they've already gotten through that. I mean, they do have to play Marymount on the road, so that's probably the game if they're going to lose one that they lose.
It's a tough one.
But yeah, I think you see St. Mary's come out of this conference. But I mean, who's going to win the Big 12? I know we talked about Kansas a second ago. I want to backtrack to that. I mean, Kansas just dropped to Iowa State again, one of those Saturday upsets. Now, we keep talking about this Kansas team. Like every game that they're dropping is to a ranked team. Iowa State's ranked. Iowa State always has a solid squad, but again, this is a Kansas team that's dropping games that you don't normally see them lose.
Yeah, especially coming straight off of national championship.
Right.
Ochai Agbaji was the best player in the country last year, and they came in with a squad that has some veterans in the back like Jalen Wilson and DeJuan Harris, and then they got they brought in some other guys like Grady Dick, who's supposed to be projected first round pick. It's just I don't know. It might be one of those teams where Kansas has these struggles in the season, but it's all paying off towards March because Bill Self is still one of the best coaches in basketball. So he'll make the adjustments when it comes tournament time. I just worry about them winning the Big 12.
I don't know. Well, they're definitely not going to win the Big 12, at least the outright Big 12 championship. Yeah. I mean, they can obviously still win the tournament, but I mean, they're fourth place in the Big 12 right now, 6-4 in conference play, 2-4 in their last 6 games. I think that's the part that's eye-opening for me is you always want to see teams picking up speed and making gains at the end of the season, and they're falling off. They got 5 losses and 4 of them are in their last 6 games. Like that's not what you want to see, late in the year. And they have Texas at home tomorrow.
Oh, that's the team you're talking about. Big 12 teams. That's my favorite to win the.
That's who's in first place. They're a game up on Iowa State right now.
Google Texas's coach right now. I can't remember his name, but think about this guy. If you pull up his name real quick, maybe Google Dan. Talk about you're sitting there, you're coaching the team, right? You're assistant coach or whatever.
Chris Beard.
In the beginning or so of the season, you get a call and you're basically like, "Hey, the head coach."
No, I think Chris Beard got fired.
Yeah, so
the head coach.
He got fired.
He got fired in like the middle of the season. This coach took over.
So you got a guy that's like, all right, the head coach just got fired. He has this domestic violence situation. You got to coach Texas now, and I think he's gone 12-2 in his since he started as the head coach.
Yeah, they haven't lost. Well, they lost to Kansas State and to Tennessee in
Yep.
that last like maybe 15 games, and
Yeah.
then the next loss is Illinois like game 5.
Yeah, so they're 12-2 since I'm pretty sure I heard that stat by John Rothstein last night on CBS Sports. But they're 12-2 and since he started. And not only do I think like he should be in the running.
Oh, I'm sorry, they have 3 losses in Big 12, or no, 2 losses in Big 12 playing in Tennessee.
It's Rodney Terry.
Rodney Terry.
Yeah.
So I mean, like what I'm saying for him is Coach of the Year for Big 12, and I really think he should be on the watch list for Coach of the Year nationally. I mean, look what he's done with that squad, and Texas lost a couple players last year, and I mean they look even better. They're deep too.
Do you think he keeps that coaching job, or do you think they're going to find somebody else?
100%.
You have to keep someone like that when you're interim head coach, or when you're named interim head coach, and you come in and then you win a majority of your games and you only lose a couple games, and every game that they've lost other than the Kansas State game has been on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Which in college basketball, it's tough to play on the road, especially in one of these bigger conferences. So they're still in first place in their conference, and they're playing well. In all those games that they've lost, they were all close games.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to keep, unless there's just some monumental downfall at the end of the year. They lose a couple games in a row, and then they lose in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, and then they get bounced first round in the NCAA tournament. That's the only way you even talk about not bringing him back. Yeah,
I think he's. I mean, the job he's doing there is incredible because I had Texas in the top 5 of the Big 12, but not number 1 in the beginning of the season. So I guess it's only up from here.
Yeah. Well, the other upset, a couple other upsets to talk about. FAU, Tootie. I told you what game they were going to lose. You didn't want to listen.
JT was right. FAU lost to UAB the other night. I watched it, but they bounced back, and Google Dan, you got to help me out. I forget who they just played. Charlotte. They played Charlotte.
Yep.
And they like just dog Charlotte. And
won by 15.
I really think that Jordan Walker, Jelly Walker for UAB, he came back. UAB was super amped for that game. They just had a really good game, and FAU just didn't shoot the ball well. It's tough. I think that loss was needed because that gives them something to where like, all right, we're not perfect. We just lost our 20-game win streak. But they got to be able to be up in the running for an at-large bid, or if, of course, if they win their conference, they'll definitely be in. But they're a really good team. I hope they don't fall from the rankings because they're still a really, really good squad.
I mean, I think they're going to drop a little bit. They haven't really been getting respect in the rankings. They went on, the 20-game win streak or whatever it was, and we're just moving up like one spot each week. So I feel like they're definitely going to fall. But we've been talking about this. UAB is a good squad. That's not a squad that like you drop a game to and you go, oh, how the hell did they lose that game? Like UAB can take down a lot of teams.
Yeah, they can. And just as like same for FAU. I mean, I feel like if that game was at home, it would have been a different story. It's just like you said, playing on the road is different. It's really hard to win in college basketball. It doesn't matter where you play. We were talking about before the pod, betting stuff, and University of Santa Barbara, another team that I talked about last week. I mean, they lost to Cal State Northridge, who just won their 6th game. So, I mean, you can really lose to anybody. It's just about how you lose.
Let's correct this. They've won their 5th game.
5th game, okay. Yeah. So, like, it's really just about how you bounce back and respond after a loss. So,
yeah, and we'll have to see how you were big on Santa Barbara here. They're still first place in their conference in the Big West, but they got Long Beach State here in not for a couple of days, but they're traveling to Long Beach State, and that's another team that's in the middle of the pack in that conference, so they should win that game.
Yeah. And I think they should win it. It's just, it kind of scared me that they lost to Northridge. And Long Beach State actually, they have a decent squad. Joel Murray's their leading scorer. He's a pretty good player, but they, it's a tough place to play when Long Beach State is good. I can't remember exactly what they call their gym, but it's like shaped like a triangle. And it's just like a really hard place to play when they're playing well. So Santa Barbara could drop another one to them.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know if people would really consider that one an upset, but some of the other upsets, Tennessee dropped another game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you really had, 1 and 2 lose this week. So we'll have to see how that shapes it up. Alabama's probably going to jump back up, especially since Tennessee lost to Florida, who is 13-10 on the year, has really been struggling.
Yeah.
So that is a tough loss. That's a loss that you can't really afford.
Who played well for Florida
In that game?
I saw a highlight on Twitter of somebody I talked about.
Castleton had 20 in that game.
Yeah, that dude was hooping against them. A lot of low post work, a lot of good moves. I mean, he's a crafty player. He's just kind of slow. I don't know if he can get to the league.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Castleton, if he gets to the league, is going to be a rotational piece. Like you said, that speed and athleticism really hurts him.
He'll have to play center for sure.
He'll have to play center, and I think he's going to be either some sort of small ball lineup, where they can space the floor out a lot, or he's just going to be a rotational piece that'll play 5 to 10 minutes a game.
Yeah, because somebody I was kind of looking at to compare him to was like a Frank Kaminsky type of player, but even Frank the Tank was a little bit faster,
and he could shoot the ball so much better from outside.
Yeah, he could shoot it. Castleton has a good looking stroke, though. I wouldn't knock him too much on his stroke. I think that was something he could continue to work on. He is just a slower player. So
I mean, he's only shooting 14% from the 3-point line this year.
Well, I'm just I'm talking about like mid range.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 14% not good.
Yeah,
no,
I mean, Kaminsky
was
also
in that 30. You want to be in that 35 to 45 range.
Kaminsky was also dropping 30 a game though, so it's a little different.
That is true. Kaminsky was kind of an animal.
So
he's still in the league. I don't know how.
I mean, when you're a big that can stretch the floor like that, and he's what, like 7'2". So
yeah,
it just
probably.
Yeah. But the last upset I want to talk about, and I think the biggest upset out of them all was Virginia lost to Virginia Tech. And that was the game I think you really can't lose. This is a Virginia Tech team that after that win is now 4-8 in conference in the ACC. They have they're 14-9 on the year, but when you're 10-1 in non-conference and then you can't win in the ACC, you're not a good team. You probably didn't have a good non-conference schedule, and as Virginia, you can't lose that game. That's
yeah, I would just say that Virginia Tech's a scrappy team. Hunter Couture is he's considered one of the best shooters in the ACC, and I think they just had their lumps. Couture was hurt for a little bit of the season. They've had a couple guys hurt, but Mike Young, I think, is their coach, the guy from Wofford. He does a good job there. I mean, it's just tough, man. You can lose to anybody, really.
Yeah, and I mean, to give Virginia Tech a little bit of credit, at the end of the year, we talked about that upward trajectory. They are 3-1 in the ACC in their last 4 games, and that was wins against Syracuse, Duke, and Virginia.
Oh yeah.
So they beat some of the upper teams. Now, I mean, Syracuse is lower middle pack, but
yeah.
Virginia and Duke are up at the top of that conference. So it looks like they're trending upward. Their next couple of games, they got Boston College, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. If they can go and rip off those games, those are the wins that they're going to need to go get. Maybe they're on upward trajectory to make something happen in the tournament. Maybe somehow secure an at-large bid for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, really anything can happen right now in that middle of the pack group in the ACC. There's a lot of teams kind of fighting to get up towards the top, and I mean, you could see anybody make a run at the end of the season. So that will be interesting for the ACC.
I think the ACC tournament is going to be really interesting this year because there's so many teams. Duke is 6th in the conference right now at 8-4.
Yeah.
And Clemson's first at 10-3. So there's not a huge gap in between these teams from 1 to 6.
And if you watch these teams, nobody is there's no dominant outright team. I mean, the fact that Clemson has the success they've had this year, I'm very surprised in general, but like I don't see Clemson winning the ACC. So I don't know. There's a lot of teams where, I mean, I could see somebody in the middle like Virginia Tech going on a run or like Wake Forest going on a run. I mean, that's just how wide open it is. But at the end of the day, I think North Carolina is probably going to win the ACC.
You think North Carolina will?
That's going to be my pick. I think.
I don't know. I don't know if I like that one.
I think the success from last year is going to carry over, and they're battle tested. Those guys.
I'm not a fan of their center though.
You don't like Baycock?
Nah, I don't know. Every time I watch him play, I just like he picks up so many stupid fouls.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's always out of position. He just fouls somebody for no reason. He's like every game I've ever watched with him at North Carolina, he's always in foul trouble. And with my big men, if you're supposed to be one of the better players on your team, you got to stay out of foul trouble. And
I agree. I agree, but he's also like one of their best players. Like last year, he was a beast last year in the tournament.
That's fair. And I know when he hurt his ankle last year, that was kind of the end of North Carolina.
Yeah.
When his athleticism fell off a little bit and he was hobbling around, but I don't know. I don't know about that North Carolina take. That's a hot one.
My two picks. If I had to have a second pick, is going to be my team,
Syracuse. Yeah.
Just because I love it. I love Judah Mintz. I love the way like we kind of battle together, and like I think we could beat anybody on any given night. We've just had a tough schedule this past couple games, and it will figure itself out towards the end. But I never count out Jim Boeheim and the Orange.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to jump into the segment.
Okay.
We're going to rename it.
Thank you.
For the episode to Tootie's Trash Takes. All right. Now, the reason we're going to rename it to Tootie's Trash Takes, your team from last week, you said, oh, watch out for Southern Indiana, the Screaming Eagles. And what did they do last week? 0-3.
I don't think they won a single game.
0-3.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't like they lost to the top teams in the conference. I mean, they lost to Morehead State, who is the top team in the conference. The other two were middle of the pack, right, with them. Dropped 3 straight games, 2 of them at home.
Yeah.
And
it was tough too. I watched the Morehead State game. That was at home, I'm pretty sure.
It was.
And I thought they had a chance. I thought they had some recent success and they were going to kind of keep it going into the next couple games, but they really screwed me over, especially on the betting side.
Yeah, that seems so. We have officially recorded. It took 3 weeks. Week number 3, one of his teams did not win a game. It's a first. We're here now.
Yep, we're here.
So we're gonna hope that you turn it around with the teams we talk about, here coming up. But some of your other takes, Marshall. Marshall went 1-1 last week. They did drop on the road to Louisiana, which is now tied for the top team in that conference. Marshall's fallen behind a little bit. How can they rectify this since they don't play either of the top 2 teams down the year?
Well, what Marshall's got to do is, because of their record, were they 18-6 now?
19-6, 8-4 in conference.
Yeah, 19-6. What they really need to do is just dominate the teams that they play in front of them, and that will just allow them to kind of, if they are to somehow get like a bid or whatever, if that's even possible, like if they win out, I mean, they could have a bubble spot or something, but they're just going to have to play really good basketball and figure everything out so that when they get to the tournament, in their conference tournament, they have a chance to win. They have one of the most dynamic players in the conference, Tavian Kinsey. I really like him. I think, I'm a Utah Jazz fan, and I love his game as like maybe a point guard, shooting guard type of guy. So, he's got to just play lights out and really got to pick up the rest of his team. It will just be interesting to see what happens with them.
Okay, and then just the last little thing to throw in there for that: 4 of their last 6 games are on the road to finish out this year. So that's a tough little stretch. Now, the teams that are playing, Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, are all at the bottom of that conference. So they're not playing, great teams. They do play Troy and James Madison, who Troy's in the middle, and James Madison is fourth in the conference. So they have basically one tough game. That one game that should be tough to end the year. So they really need to dominate those 5 other games if they're going to want to make a play at the tournament.
And I think playing on the road, you mentioned the road games will kind of help them if they do have success winning those games. It will help them towards getting into that conference tournament. If they've played on the road, they've won some. It doesn't matter who you play. It's just a matter how you win and how you play during those games. So, that might be a good thing for them to be on the road to kind of get that chemistry going in a hostile environment.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at your schedule and you see 6 of your last 8 games, obviously 2 of them were played, they went 1-1, but are on the road. Both their games last week on the road. So that's a tough stretch to end the year. But unfortunately for Marshall, they're not in the top of their conference. And because they're in the Sun Belt and they're only 3rd in their conference, I got a feeling unless they go on a tear in their conference tournament and win the conference tournament, they're going to be hard-pressed to make it in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be tough to have the Sun Belt send 2 teams, but it just depends. They would have to really, like you said, go on a tear.
Yeah. The other team you had on here was Youngstown State.
The Penguins, baby.
And they did win all their games last week. So kind of a little yin and yang to your Screaming Eagles take. But this is Youngstown teams that is now 19-6 on the year, 11-3 in the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
They have Cleveland State and Milwaukee as their next 2 games. So Cleveland State and Milwaukee are 2-4 in the conference. So they have what looks to be some tough games there. They also have Purdue Fort Worth, which is, a team we talked about. They can beat you at any given night. So their next 3 games are tough. 2 of them are on the road. Do they pull off do they go 2-1 here, 3-0?
I'm going to say hammer the Penguins 3-0. I don't think they're going to lose a single game until they go to the NCAA tournament. How about that? That's my take. They're not losing again.
Okay.
Their starting lineup is the best starting lineup in that conference. I think all 5 of their players score in double digits. They have size. They rebound the ball well. They share the ball well. They can put up big numbers out of any of those guys. Any of those 5 guys in the starting lineup could drop 20 for you, and that's something you need. But they also don't. It doesn't seem like they care about who scores the points when you watch them play. It's just about if they get the job done. So I don't know. I think they're a sneaky team, the Penguins. They have something going right now.
Okay. All right, let's jump into your teams for this week. Number 1 team. Who is the team to watch this week?
Well, if we're gonna go off of number 1, I'm gonna go with the team that I talked about a couple weeks ago, Akron, the Zips. They just came off a win with They just beat Kent State. Kent State is one of the top teams in their conference, and I don't know. They are just. I think they're going to do it again, just like they went to the tournament last year and really gave UCLA a tough time. I think they're going to go back, and just the way they've been playing recently, it would be tough to see them lose another game until the conference tournament. I would say until the conference tournament. But they have,
that's a big take there because they do have 8 games left to play.
Mm-hmm.
They still have to play Toledo twice and at Kent State.
Yep.
So that's a tough schedule. They got to play the top team in their conference, or they're top right now, but they got to play 2 and 3 games out of that 8 to end the year. 2 of them on the road. I don't know if they win out off of that, but I think I could easily see them going 6-2, 7-1 to end the year.
I could totally see 7-1, 6-2 would actually surprise me. I think this team, as long as they're healthy, nothing else, nothing crazy kind of happens. I really do think they're coming together. They're turning that corner towards, this February, getting closer to March. Talked about before the pod, Xavier Castaneda. I think he's the best point guard in that conference. I do think he's better than Sincere Carey, who plays for Kent State. And then Enrique Freeman, their center. I just like how he plays. A little bit undersized, but he's long and lanky, and he just gets a ton of boards, and he can give you 15 and 12 every night if he needed to. So
yeah, and he's shooting 60% from the field for the
Very
season.
efficient, very crafty. He has a fun game to watch.
All right. Team number 2.
Team number 2, I'm going to go with Eastern Kentucky. All right. I picked them because on Saturday night, I was watching them play Kennesaw State. It was just a random game that I had on the TV. I saw that their records were, decently even. So I was like, oh, let me watch it. And I sent you a video. They had one block on the other end. Their point guard goes down the court and just absolutely hammers one down, towards the end of the game, and really got the crowd going into it. And they finished out beating Kennesaw State. This is a team where they're kind of on the rise in their conference. I think that with these kind of teams that are in the middle of the pack, middle of the road, that are playing well towards the end of the regular season, in this type of conference, they have a chance. Okay. And their next couple games are going to be tough. They have Queens at Queens, then they play at Liberty. But after that, Central Arkansas, they can beat. North Alabama, they can beat. North Florida, they can beat. And then Jacksonville at the end of February, they can beat. So you're looking at a team that they might drop 2 more games, but they might squeeze by Queens on the road, but they don't really have a strong schedule towards the total end of the season.
Yeah, I think the big deciding factor for those. Sorry to interrupt you, Bruce. Is going to be those next 2 games on the road.
Yep.
And more importantly, that Liberty game. They're in 3rd place in that conference. They need to make some plays. I believe if they beat Liberty, they do move to 1st in the conference.
Okay. Yeah, and they're 16-9 on the season, and I don't know. They were just fun to watch. It seems like they all like playing with each other. I heard that Eastern Kentucky used to be a D2 school. They moved up to D1 within the last 5 years or so, and they just really were getting after Kennesaw State. It was a very competitive game, so I just like their mojo, and I'm rolling with them towards the end of the season.
All right, Bruce, since I rudely interrupted you, what was your take? What was your take?
No, it wasn't really a take or anything. It was just more or less like he was talking about these games that they got coming up, other than to Queens and Liberty, right?
Yeah.
So, like, other than those 2, the best time for a team to try to make a run and try to make, impact in the tournament coming up in March is trying to catch those games right at the end of February and trying to get that hot streak rolling so you can feel yourself going into the first rounds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, preferably you would like to see either that Queens or Liberty game later in the year instead of them back to back, and then 4 easy games going into the tournament. You'd prefer to see, maybe that Liberty game is like the second to last game of the year, where, they get a couple of those wins against the bottom teams, and then they go to Liberty and get that win, and now they're really rolling, where there is a possibility they do beat Queens, they sneak past Liberty, and then they just dominate the next 4 games. And when they get into the tournament, they've kind of been, they've had 2, relatively easy weeks of basketball, and they're not as hot as they could be.
Yeah.
What's team number 3?
Dude, I'm drawing a blank. Who was the 3rd team I gave?
It was the Sycamores.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Indiana State. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling up their schedule. Because
their games this week.
Win the other night.
Their games this week are home against Valparaiso and at Northern Iowa, and in their last 2 games they beat Murray State and Evansville.
The Murray State game, I took them. I took them money line actually, and they just destroyed Murray State the whole game. They never had a chance. Murray State never had a chance. And the next couple games they got, I'm looking Valparaiso. Northern Iowa, University of Illinois Chicago, Illinois State, and then you got Belmont and Missouri State. You really don't see, other than Belmont, you really don't see anybody that can come close to knocking them off. And, some of these games, Belmont's not at home, but, you got Illinois State, Missouri State are at home, and then Valparaiso is at home as well. I could totally see it again. I know it sounds like I'm saying this about all my teams, but they might not lose again. This is just that time of the year in February going to March where the good teams keep winning.
For them, unfortunately, I think with where they're at in the Missouri Valley, they're 5th place in the conference. The teams they're about to beat are not gonna give them a lot of traction. The Belmont game is good, but they're only a game back. But when you're talking about that many teams still have to play, they are really going to need to dominate throughout their conference tournament to have a shot. This is probably the longest shot out of any of the teams we've talked about so far, with making the NCAA tournament at least. The 16-9 on the year. They did have a 5-game losing streak. They're 3-5 in their last 8 games, so they've lost a lot of games as of late. They did lose to Missouri State, Southern Illinois already. So
is the Southern Illinois first in that conference?
Drake is first right now.
Drake is first. Okay, so
Southern Illinois is second.
Southern Illinois is second, and are they third?
Belmont's third, Bradley's fourth, and then Indiana State's fifth.
Okay, on paper, I truly think they're a lot better than Bradley. Southern Illinois is tough. Indiana State, I talked about them a couple weeks ago. Kavasi McCauley, he's their engine. He's their best player. I think he's a fringe second-round pick type of guy. He's definitely going to be going to the draft or going to try to play pro after this year, his senior year. But he's just going to have to be their difference maker moving forward. If they want to knock off Belmont, if they want to just, beat these teams that they have to play that aren't that great record-wise, but, you still have to win these games. So I don't think they would ever get an at-large bid, of course, but I think they have a chance of making some noise in their conference tournament if the stars align.
Okay.
But
right.
As far as betting and, my trash takes, take the Sycamores at least in their next couple games.
All right. Andrew, we got some of your takes, but I want to get back to some of the takes from last week. Okay. We asked Dan and Mr. Boosie what their teams were to watch for. Now, Mr. Bruce.
Yeah.
He said Syracuse.
Absolutely.
Syracuse is 1-3 in their last 4 games.
Playing great.
They beat Boston College, but again, they lost to Virginia, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina. How are you feeling about your take?
Oh, it's going great, man. I know just about as much as Google Dan does about college basketball.
Okay. So are you gonna double down and say once again that Syracuse is your team to watch?
Let's go.
Let's go, man. Run it back.
Okay. All right. Judy, I do want you to understand though, when Mr. Brucey steps his foot, plants it in the dirt, and says, "This is my team."
Next question. Let's go.
See, and then now he's really sealed your fate, Andrew. His record when he throws next question onto any take is atrocious. I mean, he may be 2-30 in those.
Oh God, I don't need that. I don't need that type of luck with my team.
So the energy he just brought to your team is not positive energy. Just understand.
Oh gosh.
Don't fail me, Syracuse.
And I think the only team that it was a guaranteed lock that he threw next question down on was the NFL segment when the Chiefs played the Texans. And he said Chiefs next question. I think that was the only one that broke the streak. But before that, he was about 0-25. So it's not good luck. And I really do send, the T's and P's over to Syracuse because this week is probably about to be rough.
Oh, gosh. Who we got next? I think we got Duke next.
Florida State.
We'll beat Florida State.
Blow them out by 60.
Yeah. I love it, Bruce. We're going to, cardiac cues. We make stuff happen towards this time of the year and into March. Just put us on the bubble again, all right?
Oh God. All right. Dan, your team.
What's up?
Providence.
Yeah.
Now, Providence lost their last game to one of my favorite teams, the team I keep telling you to bet on.
Yeah.
Xavier. They did drop to Xavier. Now, it was at Xavier, so okay. But other than that, their last 3 games, Villanova, Butler, DePaul, they did win all 3 of those. Third in their conference. Their next 2 games, Georgetown and St. John's, who are bottom of that conference. But then, unfortunately, they do have Creighton, then an easy game with Villanova, and then they got UConn. How are you feeling about your take?
So I still stand with my take. I like it. I like Providence. The only two teams that we're going into that they're going to play is that Creighton game, and the Xavier game at the very end of the season. But like I was saying before we start recording this segment, Providence is one of the few teams that still is undefeated at home, and both those games are at Providence. So I like it. I like the matchups. I think that they have a chance to make a play win the Big East, and I think winning those couple games is definitely what you need to do it.
Well,
They're gonna play for
UConn is at UConn.
Yeah. Fuck
Gonna
UConn.
place your flag at home, Daniel.
Fuck
I think
UConn.
Providence match well with UConn.
And UConn's
Yeah.
struggled as of late. UConn is, they're middle of the pack. They were what, ranked top 5 at one point in the year?
What's that? Providence beat UConn when UConn was ranked 4. Just saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
So- Yeah.
But they're third in their conference. Do they outright win Big East in the regular season? Is that your call?
I think they outright win the Big East in regular
Okay.
season.
All right.
Okay.
They do have Xavier second to last week of the year, so
But it's at
or second to
home.
last game.
It's at home, though. It's a
Okay.
lock. It's what it is.
I like
Dan-
it.
The lock at home. All right, I like it.
Okay. All right. Now, do y'all boys have another team you want to spotlight? Any teams that are speaking to you, or are you sticking to your 2 picks?
No, I'm holding Providence till the end of this season and
All
going
right.
into the tournament.
I've decided that I'm going to destroy the hopes of the delightful Syracuse Orange fans. So in Syracuse,
Oh my! Great. So now I know why we'll be losing the next couple games.
Yeah. So if you see your players just come out and play horrific games, just understand it is the curse of Mr. Bruce. It's not a guaranteed loss, but it's not.
damn close.
It's pretty close. I'd like to get a tally up here, Dan. If you can figure that out of his next questions, what his record is. I would love to see that, but I know for sure it's probably less than 10% win percent.
well, no, we'll find. Then we can clip all those together and we can post it on the TikTok.
Okay.
Oh, good. All right. And then the last team, you guys asked me, what is my mid-major pick?
Mm-hmm.
Nevada,
Yeah. How'd they do?
How's that going for you?
2-0.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
2-0 with wins against Air Force and San Diego State. So
Solid.
beat a top 25 team. Both those games were at home, but to end the year, they have at New Mexico and at Utah State are the 2 games that I could see them possibly losing. And with 7 games to go in the year, they go 6-1.
That's a hot take.
6-1.
Nevada goes 6-1 to end the year.
That's a hot take.
I think they dropped to New Mexico and Utah State.
Okay.
New
All right.
Mexico, that's the pit, man. That's one of the toughest places to play now in the country.
Yeah.
Richard Pitino's got that place jumping. So
Yeah.
and
I'm
Utah
making my
State,
pick 6-1.
they've been randomly good too. So that's gonna be tough, man. But I'll
'Cause
ride it. I'll ride with you.
The games
I
outside
don't
of that are they got Fresno State twice. I think that's they're an okay team, but nothing special. Should be able to beat them. San Jose State and Wyoming.
Oh man, where's San Jose? Where's San Jose State? Is
They're
that at-
14-9, 5-5 on the year, and it's at
yeah.
home.
Where's that game played?
It's at home at Nevada.
Oh, okay.
That's still gonna be a tough game.
Okay,
You know who else hasn't lost at home?
who's that?
Nevada. Just saying.
Yeah, sorry, that's what it is. It's
Hey,
just-
JT, if they keep on winning, is Nevada gonna be ranked?
Oh, I don't see with all the chaos. I think it's probably hard for them to get ranked, especially with 6 losses and only being in 4th place in their conference. But they beat San Diego State. If they beat Utah State, they're only a game back from top seed. So I think that Utah State game, if they beat Utah State and New Mexico, they're ranked at the end of the year in the low 20s.
I think if they go 6-1, like you said, in the next 7 games, I don't see why they wouldn't be ranked at least 25.
That's what I think, because the last game is home against UNLV, which is another in the middle of the pack team, but still a solid win. So I think if they go 6-1, they probably finish right around 25 in that area, and I think they're a lock for the tournament. I think the Mountain West is a conference this year that, unless nothing crazy happens, will get 3 to 5 teams into the tournament.
I agree. Mountain West is pretty strong this year, and they have a lot of interesting prospects in terms of going pro and the drafts and all that they're really producing some players this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially with, I mean, Boise State they've had a couple of decent years in like the past 5 years, but there's never a team to like look out for. And I think Boise State took a step up this year.
Mhm.
Utah State is taking a step up this year. San Diego State is where they always are, you know, near at the top or near the top of the Mountain West. Nevada's playing well again. So I think this is a really tough conference, and you could argue this is probably the best non-Power 5 conference.
I would totally agree.
And honestly, I don't really think it's close.
Yeah, and even like even the teams that are in the middle, like I mentioned San Jose State. I mean, they're a really sneaky team as well. And Fresno State, they don't have a great record, but I think they just beat UNLV. I think Fresno State, they might have knocked off New Mexico when New Mexico was undefeated.
Yeah, Fresno State is a kind of a wild team, because when you look at that team, you know, they're dropping to everybody at the bottom of that conference, but they beat UNLV twice. They beat New Mexico. So they have some crazy wins, but they're not beating anyone at the top. Lost to Utah State, lost to Boise State, lost to Utah State again. And the end of the year for Fresno State is not fun.
No,
because they got Nevada twice, San Jose State, San Diego State, Air Force, and New Mexico still left to play.
They might not. They might not win a single one of those games. Air Force is sneaky. So
I don't think they're going to win a single one of those games I just named. They might. They'll probably beat Colorado State, and they finished the year with Chicago State.
Yeah,
they're going to win that one.
Perennially awful. So
perennially trash. So
yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna stick with my take again. I'm gonna stick with my team. I think Nevada is still my team to watch out for. I think they're gonna make a play at the end of this year to win the Mountain West outright. They got that big win against San Diego State. They needed to try to make that happen. All they need is San Diego State to lose another game, and they win out, and it's theirs.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. This has been the Boyz and Ball Podcast. If you like the pod, hit the like button, subscribe. Bow.